All right, folks, we have some urgent breaking news. It appears that Donald Trump's stupidity and reckless tariffs have driven the leaders of China, Russia, and India to be on the cusp of forging a diplomatic, economic, and potentially military anti-United States alliance. Take a look.
New comments from Chinese leader Xi Jinping, who took a veiled dig at the U.S. as he promoted his vision of a new global order. Xi told leaders at a major summit, quote, "The house rules of a few countries should not be imposed by others." He said more as well.
We should advocate for an equal and orderly, multipolar world and a universally beneficial and inclusive economic globalization, and make the global governance system more just and equitable.
What truly interesting is who was there rubbing shoulders with Xi. Russia's Vladimir Putin and India's Narendra Modi all shared a laugh with the Chinese leader on the sidelines, really almost literally rubbing shoulders. For Modi, it was his first trip to China in 7 years. Let's get right to CNN's Ivan Watson, who is in Tianjin, China, with this rather extraordinary summit. Ivan.
That's right, and it's wrapping up now. The leaders of countries from across the Middle East and Asia have been gathering in this huge building here, where they boast that they represent nearly 50% of the world's population, starting to see their motorcades leave now, John. And I think the enduring image is of those leaders of three of the world's largest countries, Russia, China, and India, looking pretty cordial and happy together, and all agreeing that this is a time of global uncertainty, and they're all calling for some kind of newer, fairer system of government. A lot of digs taken at what they describe as a world order that's been dominated too much, they argue, by the U.S. since the collapse of the Soviet Union. Chinese leader Xi Jinping complaining about bullying. The Russian President Vladimir Putin saying that this kind of Atlantic Eurocentric world order, these institutions are outdated. Of course, he's complaining at the same time as his military is nightly bombing cities in Ukraine.
So I'm going to play another part of this clip here from a foreign policy analyst, and then we'll look into the Washington Post reporting on this. But this is a big friggin' deal, and it seems to be motivated entirely by Donald Trump's reckless tariffs and his weakness at the moment. Not only is he simultaneously bullying people, but because he's wildly unpopular at home and he's driven away so many of our crucial allies, it seems like Xi Jinping, Putin, and Modi are stepping up to try to take advantage of this moment.
Putin has long been pushing for a multipolar world order, one that is less focused on U.S. and a unipolar world dominated by the U.S. being the global superpower. Is he getting that wish come true now?
Well, what we're seeing is this formation of this Eurasian bloc that is strengthening its ties economically, militarily, diplomatically, and China is in the lead. You know, China wants to conquer the world through trade, through markets, vice through force, and replace the U.S. as the leading global power. And it's taking advantage of this moment when Trump has alienated people, so many nations, including India, which was becoming an ally, whereas in the previous White House administration, the Biden administration had used market forces and joining together to try to discipline China and Russia. In this case, however, we see that sort of method being thrown out the window, and now these tariffs producing a fusion of nations that haven't always had the West's best interest at heart, especially as we see with the war of aggression in Ukraine.
There you have it. Unlike the Biden administration that was using market forces, economic pressure, and diplomacy to try to, maneuver the world in a more Western-friendly direction, isolating, India and China, for example, Donald Trump's stupidity and reckless tariffs have had the exact opposite effect and have undone the good work of the Biden administration. The Washington Post puts it this way: Chinese leader Xi Jinping called on the leaders of countries including Russia, Iran, and India to integrate their economies and build an, quote, orderly multipolar world as he tried to unite them in their shared grievances with the policies of Donald Trump. So let's take a look. China tries to use Trump turmoil to unite leaders against U.S.-led order. 20 leaders, including from Russia, Iran, and India, are in China for a summit designed to promote Beijing as a reliable counterweight to the United States. Chinese leader Xi Jinping on Monday called on the leaders of countries, including Russia, India, and Iran, to integrate their economies and build an orderly multipolar world as he tried to unite them in their shared grievances of the U.S.-led global order and the policies of Donald Trump. Xi used the platform of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, here 90 miles southeast of Beijing, to implicitly criticize Trump's policies without naming him or mentioning the United States. He urged the 20 foreign leaders in attendance to, quote, seek integration, not decoupling, and, quote, unequivocally oppose power politics. Member countries should, quote, serve as a cornerstone for the promotion of a multipolar world and join a China-led, quote, global governance initiative, he said, in closing remarks a day in which leaders put on shows of chumminess and met for private talks on the sidelines of the mostly scripted event. Xi's new initiative will help provide stability at a time of rising turbulence and end, quote, the monopoly of global governance by some countries, said the foreign minister, in a news briefing Monday after Xi's remarks. And of course, it's obviously a reference to the United States most specifically. Xi held a bilateral meeting with India's Modi and will hold a one-on-one with Vladimir Putin on Russia on Tuesday. The three were filmed holding hands and smiling as they chatted on Monday. Xi also proposed deepening economic ties to take advantage of the group's mega-sized market, including by establishing an SCO development bank. China has already invested $84 billion in member countries and would provide another $1.4 billion in loans over the next 3 years. The forum is a key part of China's campaign to be seen as a reliable partner and counterweight to U.S. unpredictability in an increasingly multipolar world. Modi's attendance in particular, his first visit to the countries in 7 years, is a milestone in Beijing's attempts to mend ties with an influential U.S. partner that has been alienated by Trump's tariffs. For now, the grouping is primarily, quote, united in a sense of aggrievement with the U.S. rather than a sense of common purpose, said Carla Freeman, the director of Foreign Policy Institute at Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies. Quote, these are big countries with their own agendas. But the ceremonies are as much about optics as about deals. Many of the dignitaries will stay on for a huge military parade in Beijing this week to mark the 80th anniversary of victory in the Second World War. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, despite not attending in Tianjin, is expected to join Putin and Xi on the rostrum overlooking Tiananmen Square for Wednesday's parade. Originally founded by China and Russia in 2001 to cooperate on Central Asian militant threats, the SCO has taken on broader economic and security mandates in the recent years. Attracting leaders from across Asia, its annual meetings have become an important venue for Beijing and Moscow to jointly reshape international norms. Despite deep divisions among members, Trump's unpredictable policies have helped create, quote, a coalition of like-minded countries against the U.S., said an analyst for the Mercator Institute for China Studies, a think tank based in Berlin. Alongside the BRICS economic grouping of Brazil, Russia, India, and China, South Africa, and others, the SCO has become central to Beijing's message that, quote, the West is not the dominating power or the sole answer. Quote, it's a highly political message. So, folks, this is pretty disastrous. It really is. It is absolutely 100% disastrous for the United States. And it's a direct consequence of Donald Trump's stupidity and recklessness, these disastrous tariffs that he's imposed, his increasing tariff aggression against India in particular. And apparently, according to the reporting, it's because India will not back Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. That's how petty this is. So we are seeing disastrous international, potential economic, diplomatic, and maybe even military consequences of Trump's stupidity. The tariffs are backfiring in a spectacular way, and he is making the United States weaker as a consequence when compared to the Biden administration. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.